Hi, welcome into my studio, and on this demo I'm going to be drawing in pastels this very cute looking bulldog puppy. Now I know lots of people want to start doing pet portraits, perhaps for a business, so I thought I'd cover this in depth. There's lots of short hair and short fur on this subject. On previous videos I've done demonstrations showing longer hair and wavy fur, so I wanted to do something completely different and really go into a lot of detail in exactly how I achieve a realistic pet portrait. Now on this tutorial I'm going to be using Panpastels for the underdrawing. I show on my Patreon channel lots of different ways. You don't have to own Panpastels. You can use soft pastels, pastel sticks, or even pastel pencils, and as I said I show you that way on various other videos as well. So let's get started. Let me show you exactly what I'm working on here in the video at the moment. I've got brown pastelmat paper. Pastelmat paper is my preferred paper. I've just taped it onto my desk. My drawing is on there. Now you can draw it freehand if you want. You can use transfer paper, you can use a grid method. Totally up to you, whatever way you feel happy with getting your drawing on with your own subject. One thing I would advise is not really to draw direct onto the pastel paper. You don't want to be erasing any mistakes or really doing any erasing on there. Could affect the tooth of the paper, and I don't particularly want eraser dust on there. So if you are drawing freehand, I would suggest doing that on some spare paper, doing any of your corrections on there, and then tracing from that, so you know you've got a nice clean transferred drawing on the pastelmat paper. Now all I'm doing now is creating kind of an easy tonal underdrawing. I'm just using a pastel pencil, black, and also one in white. Brands really don't matter at all, and all I'm doing, I'm using the black just to shade in some of the darks, and to really give myself a little bit of guidance so that I can see where these darks are, and then you'll see later on I'll come in with the lights as well. Now this may seem a bit of a pointless exercise, because obviously as I build layers of pastel up, then I'm going to go over all of this and you're not really going to see any of this in the finished piece. But it really does help to get some sort of idea of the lights and the darks. The tones are really very important to get those right, so you get a nice three-dimensional form, and you'll see how easy it is to use Panpastels on top of this and get an underdrawing done very quickly with very little Panpastels at all. So I'm going to speed this up. I'm just going to carry on putting in the major darks, getting the position of everything correct, then I'll come in and start to add some of the highlights as well. So that's pretty much it for the darks. Now I always use, or almost always use, a toned paper, and the reason for that is so that I can do this, so that I can come back in now with just the highlights, and you really see how in just 10 minutes or so this drawing will really start to pop, and that's because the paper is acting as the mid-tone. And using that mid-tone paper really helps to establish early on the lights and the darks, as I'm doing now. So that was easy enough. I think about 20 minutes or so, 15 or 20 minutes, and I've really got a nice underdrawing where you can see all the darks and the lights. It's already got a three-dimensional appearance to it. So by just adding a small amount of pan pastels on top, I can really turn this into a lovely solid underdrawing, something I can really build details upon. So let's take a look and see how I apply the pan pastels. Now pan pastels, they come in these little cake tins and they come in lots and lots of different colours, and the beauty of them is that I'm using a bit of just standard printer paper on that bottom right hand corner, and I'm mixing different colours together. So you can mix them very similar to paint, and then you can use these small tools to apply the pastel straight to the surface. Now we don't want to apply much at all, and you'll see as I start to layer the pan pastel colours that a little bit goes a long way. Sometimes people are very heavy handed with it and they fill the tooth of the paper up just by applying too much. All I really want is an underlayer. I want to be able to see where all the main masses of colours are, and you will still be able to see through the pan pastel. So my drawing is not going to disappear. On top of this, that's where you'll see I'll start to add even more solid pastel and all the details. Now if you want to lighten the colour, I'm just adding a little bit of white. The white is just out of screenshot. If you want to darken it, you can add a bit more darker brown or a little touch of black. And what's a good idea is to have a small piece of the pastel mat paper, the same colour you're using, a little bit of an offcut, and try out your mixes on there. So you can hold that then up against your reference photo and really judge quite easily if the colour is correct or not. I find using pan pastels very similar to oil painting. It's more like painting than drawing. When I pick up a pencil, if it's a pastel pencil, I feel like I'm drawing then. With pan pastels, feels more like I'm painting. And as you can see, as I said, that small amount goes a long way. And you can see after just a couple of minutes, all of a sudden it's starting to come together, look more alive, and you can see where the darks that I put in and the lights are really helping as well. See, I just lightened that colour a little bit with a lighter tone, and very sparingly I'm using it. Now the little tips of these tools do wear out on pastel mat or any of the more abrasive surfaces, so you've got to expect that it will happen, but they're very cost effective. I'll go through probably 1 or 2 per drawing because I use it quite harshly. Now PanPastel also supply small sponges that you can hold in your hand. They last much longer, so if you are having trouble with the smaller tools, you can always use those and squeeze them together then to get smaller shapes. So once again, I'm just going to speed this up a bit. You can see how I mix the pans on that paper on the right hand side. I just dab the tool into it, get a little bit off, rub it onto the surface of the printer paper, and that actually takes a bit of it off, so it prevents me from putting too much down. As I said, I don't want to fill the tooth of the paper, so I'm just going to carry on with this process, just blocking in those browns. So as you can see, it does really grow quick with Panpastels. Haven't put any of the background in yet. I don't want, it's going to be a lot of green. I don't want it contaminating the surface at all. Pastel, obviously, even with pastelmat, you know, pastel does go around the surface and can contaminate a little bit. So I generally wait for the large blocking in of the background till a later stage, although I will put a little bit in just to judge the other tones by quite soon. So there I've got the black pastelmat tub, and just using that now to put in some of these darker areas just with the tip of the tool. I'm still generally going in the fur direction when I'm doing the fur and the hair. So you can see the difference between the left eye and the right eye with just say a minute or less. Really gives you a fantastic base to work upon. It's almost like sculpting, and I feel the same when I'm doing oils. I feel like I'm sculpting with that first layer, that underlayer, that map. It's what I'm going to build everything on top of, so we need a nice solid underlayer. Now, one of the things that really interested me about this drawing was this fleshy muzzle. Now you can see I'm using a soft pastel, happens to be a unison. I use lots of different brands, I'm not stuck to one brand. And I can rub that onto the printer paper and just use that like a pan pastel as well, and mix it in with my Panpastels, because sometimes you want a subtle colour change, and that's an easy way to do it. So don't think you can only use pans and mix pans together, or you can only use sticks and mix those. Everything is interchangeable. And that then opens up your pastels, the whole set, really enormously with the colour choices. So I'm adding a little bit of a purpley colour into it. It's all about just looking for those little colour changes, those colour mixes and blends, going in that fleshy direction, that furry direction. As I said, this, you don't normally see a lot of pink tones on most dog breeds, but it really attracted me to this one. I thought it'd be a bit of a challenge, along with that very, very short fur, to get this fleshy muzzle in place. And I'm going to go quite realistic with this pet portrait, just so you can see how I do some detailed work, but I'm also going to work fairly directly. Now by that I mean, rather than doing 6, 7, 8 layers, building them up slowly, I'm going to try and do it more in like 3 layers, or get the majority done in 3 layers. So I'm searching out the mid-tones, the highlights, the darks. I'm squinting a lot at the reference photo, not getting drawn in by the details yet. And I'm going slightly darker, just slightly darker than I want the finished piece to be. And that'll allow me to put my lights on top. But I'd advise you watch the whole thing progress all the way through before you start your pet portrait, just to see the exact process I used. See how I build layers upon layers. So I want it a bit darker in this central portion, and then it goes out to become more fleshy coloured, more pinky. And obviously we can layer on top as well. So if I wanted to have a bit more pink on it, I can just drag it on top. Simple as that. The beauty of the pans as well, really easy to blend. And rather than mix all in one little pile, you can see I'm using different areas of the paper, and that's then giving me lots of colour mixes to come back into. And that's the same way I work when you see me doing oil paintings. So you see a little rub of the pastel stick, picking it up with the PanPastel tool just to apply it. So that's the muzzle area done for an underlayer. Now I'm going to work on this white section on the forehead. Now the trick here, the secret here, is not to go too dark. When you've got an area that's very light, you don't want anything too dark underneath, especially if you need to go pure white. Now I say this on most of my videos, but it is a mistake people make frequently. Something I did a little bit. I was going a bit too dark when I first started with pastels myself on areas that need to be very light. Now the reason is that there will always be some sort of contamination picked up, or you pick up some of the layer underneath. So obviously if you want an area to be really bright white, you don't want anything dark or even slightly dark underneath. That's why I generally go in with my very brights pretty much straight away. Now there's going to be areas on this head, on this white section of the head, that's going to have some pinks in there, and you'll see me start to add these, and I'm even keeping those quite light. Just suggestions going in. You see, you can use the tools as well in different positions, and the beauty of the pans is that I can really get a lovely soft effect very easily. So I'm not putting much down. You can almost see the paper through it. Still doing my mixes. There's very slight pinks going in there as well. Not all of the slight subtle colours are being picked up on the videos that I do, but I'm showing you the techniques. At the end of the final video I'll show you the finished drawing taken under studio lights, and then you'll be able to more easily see all the little subtle colour changes and tones. But on the video, as I say, I'm just showing you the techniques so you can use them and apply them to your own artwork. So a bit lighter on top of the head. Whilst I've got that colour on the tool, I might as well dot it around on other areas that I see it. Okay, to really bring the rest of the dog up to the same level of completion, I need to do that area underneath the chin. It's kind of a tricky area. There's lots of little colour changes in there that I like to work on. I don't like to just go to black or go to a dark brown and try and block that in. It's all these subtle colour changes and bounced light which you generally see underneath, on the underneath surfaces, because that's bouncing up then, especially in strong sunlight, bouncing up colours. Perhaps it's grass, which I think it is underneath the animal in this instance, and that will bounce up onto the white areas as well, and they'll all get tinged under the jowls with a little bit of green, and that's where I've got that green in that top right hand corner out ready. Now I'm starting to apply some of those green tones on these undersurfaces. Remember I said about the bounced light, so on the reference you can see we've got quite a punchy green background, and I'm assuming it's grass underneath as well, the dog, so that's what's bouncing up in. Now I haven't got any of my really rich colours in just yet, but also remember that the actual video doesn't show up quite as punchy as it is in real life, so just keep that in mind. So I'm just going to carry on tweaking a little bit, and then I'll block in just some dark PanPastel over the nose, and that's pretty much the dog then underdrawn or underpainted, ready for details. But before I start with details, I want to put some of that background in. Now by putting that green in, it allows me then to judge the colours of the dog more easily. So I'm not going to put too much in, I'm just going to put a bit in on that left hand side. Could put the whole background in if I wanted to, just means I'll need to use a little bit of paper to rest my hand on. No more complicated than that. Right, as I say, I'm just going a little bit more tweaking around and blocking that nose now with some of this black. Nothing complicated at all, just taking these steps a little bit at a time. Subject can look very complicated when you look at it as a whole, but as I said, if you just take it a bit at a time, you can actually do this, no problem at all. Slow and steady. The beauty of pastels, if we don't put too much down, we can keep layering, we can keep adjusting and refining, just like we do with oil painting.